What happens when one of the biggest toy makers in the world and one of the best fan makers in action figure collecting get kind of the same idea at the same time?
You may take Captain Solo to Jabba the Hutt after I have Skywalker.
He's no good to me dead.
Well, it was bound to happen eventually. The fans are doing the best work, and these companies are trying to get in on some of that action, and so sometimes things are going to dovetail. And in the case of the Stan Solo new Boba Fett and the Retro Collection Hasbro Darth Vader, there's been a conceptual convergence. But the question is, who did it better? Now, as you know, I've always been excited to hear about new Stan Solo figure announcements. I love the range, I love what he's been doing, he has great instincts. Hasbro's Retro Collection, on the other hand, if you followed the videos that I've done for a while, has a lot to be desired. Where Stan Solo was giving us new characters that hadn't been made by Kenner, Hasbro was merely dabbling in it. They gave us a Grand Moff Tarkin, they gave us a really weak layup with a snowspeeder Luke Skywalker in the Empire Strikes Back range, but overall they haven't really embraced the Retro Collection potential. But then I heard that Hasbro, inspired by the Obi-Wan Kenobi miniseries on Disney+, was going to introduce a range of figures that were retro-inspired for those characters, and as part of that, they were going to offer an updated Darth Vader.
Impressive.
This was really exciting at first, because I thought, finally, Hasbro understands what the Retro Collection needs to do, really explore the potential of the gaps and gaffes in the Kenner figure line, and shore them up and give us things that we always wanted as kids, but Kenner never quite got around to making. And one of those would definitely be Darth Vader. Not that they didn't give us Darth Vader, they obviously had Darth Vader in the entire run from 1978 all the way through 1985. The problem is that Darth Vader never changed the entire time. Now, normally this wouldn't be a problem because you'd say, well, Darth Vader didn't change in the movie trilogy either. What I'm talking about, though, is they made a few missteps on the figure in the original run. He didn't have a codpiece over his costume mysteriously, so it looked like he was always walking around with this Speedo bulge, and he had that lightsaber arm that never got upgraded, as well as the vinyl cape that also never got upgraded. But in the Return of the Jedi range, Kenner was upping its game in sculpting, detail, and going away from vinyl capes to soft goods accessories. And this is where it would have been a great opportunity to give us an upgraded Darth Vader figure. With the correct details that had been accidentally omitted from the original, upgrade his lightsaber arm to a separate clip-in lightsaber accessory as they had done with all the Luke Skywalkers from 1980 forward.
I see you have constructed a new lightsaber.
And also give him a soft goods cape. A few months before Hasbro previewed this new Darth Vader, Stan Solo had said, I want to take another crack at the Kenner Boba Fett, bring him up to date a little bit while still keeping him in the vintage style. Because the original Boba Fett figure from Kenner was the same from 1979 all the way through 1985, and it was a very multicolored affair that was closer to what they revised his outfit in the movie to be from Empire Strikes Back, where the colors were very muted, to Return of the Jedi, where the colors were very colorful. It almost feels like the production team was trying to get the character in the movies to visually catch up with the Kenner action figure. Because the 1979 Boba Fett figure from Kenner looked nothing like the Empire Strikes Back figure in terms of color and deco. At the same time, the Boba Fett action figure had a sculpted-on jetpack because they had that aborted rocket firing feature that they ended up not using. So that entire assembly doesn't look very accurate to the films. And of course, he notoriously came with a Stormtrooper blaster rather than Boba Fett's unique carbine rifle. He was also missing his cape and a number of other details. So Stan Solo said, I want to see if I can update this figure but keeping it in the Kenner style while making it more accurate to the films. Stan Solo would end up making two versions of this figure that are available right now. One in the Empire Strikes Back movie deco of the costume, and the other in the Return of the Jedi deco of the costume, both including soft goods capes that Boba Fett wore in those films that the Kenner figure completely omitted, as well as having removable jetpacks that are also correctly decoed. In a wink to the Kenner tradition of packing a lot of figures with the same accessories, Stan Solo opted to give each Boba Fett the Return of the Jedi version of the blaster, and this is understandable because to tool up two separate guns that look almost identical wouldn't have been worth it. And the Return of the Jedi version of the blaster is arguably more iconic and recognizable given the prominent role it plays in the Sarlacc pit battle. What I feel Stan Solo has achieved is taking the Boba Fett figure and interpreting it through the lens of Kenner's increasing sophistication in 1985. I would almost call Stan Solo's new revised Boba Fett a lost 1986 Power of the Force upgraded Boba Fett. That's what it would have been, because if you stand it next to those last 17, and even a lot of the figures from 1984's Return of the Jedi range, it fits in very seamlessly, where the original 1979 Boba Fett amongst those figures can start to look a little dated. And I think nobody argues that when you put the later Luke Skywalkers and Han Solos and Princess Leia's next to the original Lukes and Hans and Leia's, there is a design and style jump there. All that being said, how did the Darth Vader from Hasbro's Obi-Wan Kenobi Retro Collection fare? It's not a disaster, but it is a disappointment.
It is too late for me, son.
I've mentioned this before, that Hasbro's retro collection mentality seems to be very stuck in 1979. I'm not sure why, but if you look at their Tarkin and you look at some of their retro collection figures based on more modern series, you will see vinyl capes, you will see a lot of simplistic face designs and sculpts, and you'll see a lot of similar design cues that Kenner leaned on in those early days of the Star Wars collection. When compared to the original vintage Darth Vader, this new Darth Vader doesn't look terrible, but it does look juvenile. Part of that has to do with the exaggerated red eyes on the helmet. Now, I know in the original Star Wars production there was a slight red tint to his helmet lenses, but they have gone overboard on this Kenner figure to accentuate that. However, at the same time, they have massively improved the detail of this figure by giving him his proper brief/codpiece, whatever you want to call it, and at the same time molding his lower skirts that are omitted from the Kenner figure onto his legs. His boots also have more correct detail. They have revised his right arm so that he can hold a clip-in lightsaber quite well, I might add, and they have given him a 1984-85 style soft goods cape rather than stick with the vinyl cape. And this is a nice effort to see on Hasbro's part. I would go so far as to say this figure is one of Hasbro's best efforts in the retro collection so far, but it still falls slightly short. It has a kind of chunkiness that's reminiscent of the Tusken Raider from 1978, in the legs especially, and when you stand it next to Stan Solo's Boba Fett, it does look more juvenile. There is no comparison. However, a very kind and generous supporter of RetroBlasting surprised me with a custom of the Obi-Wan Kenobi Retro Darth Vader. And it was a very subtle custom. He didn't have to do much. All he did was correct those red lenses. And that upgrades the figure immensely from what Hasbro has presented to us. Does it look as good as taking a custom cape and skirt and a custom lightsaber for the vintage Darth Vader and outfitting that figure with those? I'll let you be the judge which one you think looks better for a display. All that said, this subtle change to the retro Obi-Wan Kenobi series Darth Vader goes miles, and it's really nice to finally see its full potential unlocked, even though I still say it doesn't hold a candle to Stan Solo's excellent Boba Fett movie-accurate Kenner versions. This will be the Darth Vader that I display in my custom freeze chamber when I finally have everything ready. On a final note, I just want to say it's inspiring to see what Stan Solo is achieving with these custom artisan figures for vintage Star Wars. He's envisioning what 1986 might have looked like if the line had continued, and I love that. I also think there's the real possibility that some of the things fan makers do compel toy companies to up their game. And in the case of this Darth Vader from the Obi-Wan Kenobi Retro Collection, I see the distinct possibility that Hasbro has been paying attention to what artisan toy makers are doing. However, with Hasbro's prices continuing to rise across their figure ranges, with the prices of these retro collection figures going far beyond what we should be expected to pay for simplistic figures that still don't match the detail and packaging quality of fan makers, the real destiny for retro Star Wars toys is now in the hands of fans.
Hello, Vader.
Well, Kylie doll, we meet again at last.
It's been a while since I've been in this room. Feels like I've traveled light years.
I used to travel light years as a star pilot. If I had my arms back, I'd be in hyperspace right now.
Can't you just get them out of the display case?
Were it that simple, I fear at this stage I cannot escape this destiny. I've learned they're in Australia.
Australia? You were there a few years ago. Did you accidentally leave them behind?
No, Tony Roberts took them there by accident. So he claims. I'll never get them back now.
Come on now, don't you believe in magic?
There is no wizard or sorceress that can aid me. For all I know, they're in a house on Ramsey Street, Charlene.
Show me a happy face. I want to see a smile shining like a supernova.
A smile? What makes you think I care about what you desire?
If that's the sort of attention you want, you're well on your way.
What part of this conversation makes you think I want your attention? Are you deaf?
I don't know, let's see. Try begging for your life like you did the last time we spoke.
What the heck is going on in here? Before you answer, do I even want to know?
It's Kylie. She's evil. About a year ago, she tried to kill me, and she just threatened me again.
Okay, look. I tried to be understanding a few months ago when you said you saw toys moving in the studio.
I admit that was probably my eyes playing tricks on me because of the hard cider, but I'm telling you
that a doll of Kylie Minogue has been speaking to you for over a year, and yet she hasn't spoken to me once.
Michael, let's be honest. A lot of people don't like speaking to you, and
you're trying to tell me that out of all the toys in this studio, it's the Kylie doll that's talking to you. And as if that's not enough, you claim she's evil. What's next? That Cobra Commander is a ray of sunshine? I should be so lucky.
That was an unkind comparison.